I think we're being watched. Welcome to our weekly Gun Channel show on Monday, the Lock and Load show, and wanted to talk about some of the great war movies over in the history. See Jesse James out there in the external, and I think he's in the Gun Channel side too. And we've got Jared from the Massachusetts. I'm sure I said that wrong. And he's in the Army. Was in the Army, and so veteran. And Dusty One from the great state of Michigan, working on salsa canning, an underappreciated endeavor for those of margarita, chips, and salsa fans like me. I did want to talk about, before we get into a bunch of great war movies, about some of the, just a little cleanup on last week's show on the USS Indianapolis, which fell victim to a couple of Japanese torpedoes and about 1,000 tiger sharks and oceanic whitetips and makos. American Heroes Channel had an hour-long show which had a lot of interviews with the survivors who talked about their experience surviving the torpedo attack and over 80 hours in the water. And the also an interview with the Japanese submarine commander who sunk the USS Indianapolis, which was the first ship that particular submarine had ever sunk. And some of the stuff that I didn't know at the time, which was found interesting, especially if you're into prepping, is one thing you should never do if you're in the ocean is drink salt water. They knew they shouldn't drink it. They trained sailors not to drink it. But when you're in the water, when you're in the ocean and don't have any food or water, and you're in the water with no shade, and the nights are freezing and the days are blistering, and you're thirsty as all heck after 4 days without water of any kind, you don't know what you're doing, and you're surrounded by water, but you can't drink it. So some people did drink it, and it not only did it increase their dehydration rate, it actually drove them insane, and they would start attacking people. And another thing is that the life vests in World War II were only good for 72 hours. So being in the water for 80 hours was not a good thing. And so you should definitely not, you have to resist every temptation. But after 4 days in the water, the people who didn't die right away and get eaten by the sharks, they were, when night came, they were praying for the sun to rise because they were freezing. When the sun came up, they were praying for the sun to set because they were burning hot. Their corneas were literally, they all went temporarily blind because the corneas were seared by the reflection of the sun on the water. And there was water everywhere, and so some people drank it, and they went instantly insane and started attacking whoever was next to them, and in between the sharks and that. But the real controversy was that the Navy, first they made several mistakes. The first one was the USS Indianapolis was a heavy cruiser, and it didn't have any radar on it to detect submarines with. And so it was supposed to have a destroyer escort, which had radar. So they had no warning. And then what happened, obviously, is that they were overdue, and nobody lifted a finger. That even when they intercept, the U.S. intelligence signals intercepted a message from the Japanese submarine, because they had broken the code for the Imperial Japanese Navy, the magic program, and basically that they knew that Japanese sub. I'm hearing an echo, but they knew that the Japanese sub had reported sinking an American cruiser, but they thought it was a trap to lure their Navy out, and they were all about getting ready to invade Japan. This was right before they dropped the bomb. Excuse me. Swallowed an ice cube the wrong way. So what happened was the captain wasn't zigzagging, but it's really the captain's discretion whether he should be been zigzagging. He wasn't, because it was a foggy night. It was dark. There was cloud cover. There wasn't very much silhouette. And so the Navy wound up court-martialing the captain because he wasn't zigzagging. And the Japanese submarine commander said it wouldn't have made any difference because they fired a full spread of 6 torpedoes in a fan, as a fan, and even if he was zigzagging, there was no way 6 torpedoes could have missed that ship. So what this really was about was everybody knows the Navy is never wrong. It's just that this time they were a little short on being right, and they needed somebody to blame for not. What the captain of the Indianapolis kept asking at his trial was, how come nobody sent out any ships or planes to find my men? And the Navy never really took responsibility for that until 2001, after the captain of the Indianapolis put a bullet through his head and died. That's suicide, because the Navy had been trying to court-martial him for all these years. They absolved him after he was dead of any wrongdoing or mistakes in 2001. So there's a big controversy, but it was really interesting hearing the stories of the survivors about like the doctor who was in the water, and he couldn't do anything to help anybody because there was no shade, no water, no food. All he could do was pronounce people dead and say the Lord's Prayer. And he ever since he was rescued, he said he can never go into a church because he can never say the Lord's Prayer without just crying. So it had a pretty big effect on these people. But anyway, now that I covered don't drink salt water if you're shipwrecked, or don't drink salt water, period, from the ocean, because it will drive you insane and increase the dehydration process. You can distill it.
Yeah.
And I see Oily made it.
Yes. Sorry about the echo earlier.
That's okay. I
thought I had my external volume off, but it wouldn't.
Well, at least it's better than with Frank the other night when he tried to chat. I don't know. I didn't have the same problem today that he had.
Well, I think your and my channel has been around longer, and that may be part of it. And it really depends on who it is. Because he showed me his screen like on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I messengered him, kind of like FaceTime, and yeah, it didn't have some of the options that mine has. So yeah, I think they're just taking it away.
Okay, before I start going into all my incredibly long list of war movies and why I like them, I thought I'd ask everybody. I'll start with you, Orly. Do you have any favorite war movies, or have any war movies that you like, or at all?
What's the name of it? It's the newer one up on the ridge. I can't think of the name of it. Something Ridge.
Heartbreak Ridge.
Hacksaw Ridge.
Hacksaw Ridge. I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, you have got to see that one, and it's a true story. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of true stories.
This one is really especially amazing. It's about a guy that's a conscientious. I can't even say it.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for that, and I thought, well, why would I want to go see a movie about a conscientious objector that didn't want killing people? That's what I asked myself.
You've got to see it. You'll understand. Hi, John Z. He just showed up in the external. But anyways, by the way, hi Rupan. Hi Dusty.
Hey, Oily.
Anyway, so yeah.
Hello.
Hi guys. So yeah, no, it is excellent. I mean, I wasn't sure about it either, but oh wow, it is amazing.
Okay, well, I'll definitely try and figure out how to see it at some point. But I've been watching movies like almost all over through the weekend. there was like TCM had a Cary Grant and not just Cary Grant, a James Cagney marathon.
Ah.
So yeah, it started with White Heat, and which had like one of the best lines ever when he breaks out of prison and somebody asks him, "You aren't going to kill me in cold blood, are you?" And James Cagney's line is, "No, I'll let you warm up a little first." And
I'll consider it.
Oh yeah, he was always considered when it came to killing people. It was there's another line where when they broke prison and stole a car, he had one guard or somebody hostage tied in the trunk of the car, and so when they get to wherever they're going, he yells at the trunk without opening. He says, "Are you okay in there?" And the guy says, "I can't breathe. I'm not getting any air." James Cage says, "Okay, I'll ventilate it for you." Fires a few shots into the trunk.
Well, that Hacksaw Ridge, when you watch it, make sure you watch at the very end, because it'll actually show pictures of him, of the guy that the actor was portraying and everything, and they do an interview with the actual guy. So yeah, I mean,
has anybody, another true story that I saw recently was Lone Survivor.
That's awesome. Yes.
That was the one about in Afghanistan where the Navy SEALs are doing Overwatch and are trying. There's a Taliban controlled village, and there's like an Al Qaeda agent in there that they're supposed to try and get, and they're in the hills like a mile out of town, and the grandfather and two of his sons, one is very young child and the other one's fighting age, and are just walking around, and they capture that they run up into the group of U.S. soldiers, and then the soldiers have to decide what to do with them because there's like 1,000 Taliban in the village like a mile away, and if basically they have three choices and what to do with them. The last one is to kill them, and they decide to let them go and try and get up to a ridge where they can get a clear radio signal and satellite signal and get an extract from helicopter extraction from the area because the op is compromised, but they can't. Then they have to fight tons of Taliban, and then they run into some more Afghan civilians who help them and fight off the Taliban because of the Pashtun Wali tradition, which is for them. The Pashtuns have a tradition of taking care of and being responsible for your guests in your home and your village. So they fought off the Taliban to keep them safe, and that was the one survivor. There was one American survivor from that patrol, basically. So it was a true story.
And that's Marcus Luttrell. And what's really interesting about Marcus Luttrell, I believe it was him and his brother. Might have been Chris Kyle. I don't think so. I think it was Marcus Luttrell. Him and his brother, whenever they were very young, had a man in their little town that was a former Navy SEAL. And he was an old codger, and he was gripey and everything else. And the man, or the boys, really wanted to be Navy SEALs when they grew up. So they went over to this man's house, this former soldier, and asked him to train them to be Navy SEALs. And this man did not let up any slack either. I can't believe that their parents allowed them to do it, but those boys went over there. That guy put them through the ringer. I mean, through the ringer.
Well, so does the Navy. They have their own ringer to train Navy SEALs.
Right, but I mean, these were little boys.
Yeah, they weren't adults, so.
No, and they went back constantly, and he put them through same kind of tests that the SEALs put them through. And it's really amazing. Both of them ended up being SEALs, I believe. Marcus and his brother. I can't think of what his brother's name is now. But yeah, both of them ended up being war heroes. Amazing men.
Well, I have a list of a lot of movies that we could talk about, but I just start with the first one. Historically, was the most controversial film ever, and it still is. And it was it was just basically people hate it and people love it, and was made in 1915. And there used to be a Lifetime Achievement Award for the Academy Awards, but it was named after the guy who produced the film, called the Griffith Award. But because of the controversial nature of the film, they just changed it to a Lifetime Achievement Award. I don't even know if they still hand out a Lifetime Achievement Award, because the film was so controversial in 1915. And the NAACP tried to get it banned. Everybody tried to get it banned, and the people are still arguing about the same issues today. It was called The Birth of a Nation in 1915. And it was one of the first films to use a musical score, and they were still silent films. And there's a lot that was controversial about it. It was all the black actors all the black characters were white people with blackface. And it was basically, it was written about, I don't want to get too into, the whole controversy about, I don't want to refight the Civil War, just talking about historical movies, but just for context so people know what it's about. Let's see, what it says on Wikipedia about the Birth of a Nation. It was basically about the abolitionists and the southern states during the Reconstruction and after the Reconstruction, and it basically portrays there's a lot of racial stereotypes, but it was just historically very significant film, and it won, I don't know how many Academy Awards, but just technically, it was technically D.W. Griffith put the film together, but it was based on a book called The Klansman, and it portrayed the KKK and was responsible for the rebirth of the KKK. So obviously, it's super controversial, but it was based on the book called The Klansman, and it's called The Birth of a Nation. That was like just the most controversial film ever. So
I don't guess I've seen that one. I've seen a lot of the older movies, but I don't guess I've seen that one.
Yeah, well, there's probably a reason. People, don't like. I'm sure that if somebody posted it on YouTube, it would be flagged, in like 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, but anything's flagged anymore. One of my friends put on there making lacto fermented pickles, and I guess I guess.
I saw that, and I was like, why would anybody want to ferment pickles? But that got flagged.
Yeah, lacto fermented is a different way of fermenting food that is actually really healthy for your gut. And yeah, because it had the word fermented in there, it got flagged.
Yeah, which brings me to another film that I watched over the weekend, The Roaring Twenties, which started out as a war film with Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney in World War I, and then they come back and kind of become gangsters during Prohibition. And I think Humphrey Bogart is running booze on ships for one company, and James Cagney has his own bootlegging and distribution company, and they make a deal. And anyway, at the end of the movie, James Cagney shoots Humphrey Bogart's character. So
thanks for running it for me. Spoiler alert.
Well, I mean, the film's been out since like 1925, so you know, if you haven't seen it by now, I mean, you've had like almost 100 years to watch it.
So. I didn't know about the movie till just now, and then you had to tell me the ending.
Oh, there might be some more spoiler alerts in this, spoilers in this broadcast about the whole film.
Man, I better go get my earplugs.
Well, it's anyway. This film, anyway, Birth of a Nation was a super controversial film. The NAACP tried and failed to get it banned, and part of the problem that they had was all the film censorship rating boards. There weren't any black people on them. Let's see. Speaking of Boston, you were saying somebody was saying that people were out protesting in Boston about taxes or something. But let's see. Well, I think there was a riot in Boston over this film, but you can imagine people rioting in Boston since the Tea Party. But
yeah, they're like, "Hey, that worked." Something else.
Anyway, I have other films to talk about. I don't really. I'm not trying to make this a controversial chat. I'm sure some people will actually hate this movie, and some people will love this movie. And it's hard to get a hold of. You'd probably have to buy a DVD of it off of Amazon. If Amazon will actually sell this DVD, I don't know. It's that controversial. The Birth of a Nation. I mean, it's got a picture of a Klansman on a horse with the cross and everything. So,
wow.
And it has the assassination of Abraham Lincoln in there too. So, basically, this pro-union. It's pro-union in it, and the pro. There's two families: a pro-union family and a pro-Confederacy family, and it follows them over the course of several years, and that's the film. So, moving on to another film. One of my favorite war films, but I don't know if you can call it a war film. I'm going to screen share it for you guys. I watched this one, and this was one of Cary Grant's last films. He produced this, and I think and then after one more, he thought he was too old to do a romantic lead anymore. Father Goose, where he plays Walter Eklund, and he gets Trevor Howard plays Australian Navy commander who maroons him and gets him to be a coast watcher on spot planes, enemy plane movements and ship movements, and then he on a remote island off of New Guinea, and then he has to go rescue another coast watcher, and two winds up being dead, and instead he finds the coast watcher's dead, and he finds a marooned embassy school teacher who's in charge of 7 children who are all girls. And so he basically went from one island to another in a dinghy, and he has to get them all off of this Japanese-held island and back to his island. And then it's just the absolutely funniest movie, and it's one of those things when you have a romantic comedy like this and a war movie all in one. I mean, romantic comedies are there's just so much more you can do with them, and Cary Grant was just so great in this one. And so Leslie Caron was pretty good. She was a French actress who had come to America. I think one of her first films was with Gene Kelly, and she also did some with Fred Astaire. She was a ballet dancer, basically, and they needed. I think it was An American in Paris was her first movie. I think that was it. It may not have been, but Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire, they were big actors and big names in the time. And so when she went to her first opening premiere of a movie, she went to Gene Kelly and said, I think I have the flu. My stomach feels queasy. I have a temperature, I have a fever. And he said, no, you don't have the flu. This is just your first time you're seeing yourself on the big screen. So I felt that way too the first time. So,
hearing your own voice is the worst because you don't sound anything like you think you sound. Because
and the screen is like in a movie theater is very big. So you look at and see every little thing that you don't like about your face and.
Yeah, can you imagine now in HD? Oh, at least they have better makeup applications now, though. So, well, I will have to watch that. I think.
You've never seen Father Goose?
I think I have. It looks familiar, but if I have, it was back when I was a teenager.
Well, there's the best line in this movie. When I get to the picture, I'll tell you what it is, and you can say it for me. There's Cary Grant shooting. They shot this in Jamaica, actually, although it's supposed to be set in the South Pacific. And so basically, he's in charge of, basically all this female caretaker, kind of school teacher. But it really turns out that he's the school teacher. He's turned into a beach bum alcoholic. And because he doesn't like that he had to wear a tie to be a school teacher in college. So he kind of ran away from society and to escape. And then, so it was just funny. And of course, there's a romance that develops between them because they're stranded on this island together. So if he looks like a drunken beach bum, that was the character. And that wasn't the thing was, that wasn't the romantic lead that he played in all of his other movies. He was suave, debonair. He wasn't an alcoholic beach bum, who was he was an antisocial, who didn't want to talk to anybody about anything. So I need to get to the place where I could show you the line. And what's really funny about this is she hides his alcohol from us. As soon as she hits the island. And the alcohol was basically the way that the Navy commander bribed Cary Grant's character to actually spot planes. So every time he spotted a plane that was confirmed by some other coast watcher, he would get a bottle, and they hid them all over the island. And then this lady comes along and she hides the booze again from him. So
I'm pretty sure I've seen it. That. Especially this last picture here, it looks very familiar. Where they're sitting at the table.
Yeah. And so what happens at the end of the movie, if you don't mind me spilling the beans, is
whatever.
Here's the romantic scene where he's trying to teach her how to fish, and then he doesn't want to finish for some reason, and so.
Yeah, I wonder why he wouldn't want to finish.
Yes.
Brother.
Here's the funny line. You can say it. She says, "My coconut is empty."
my coconut is empty.
Yes. Well, but what happens is she's supposedly gotten bit by a snake. And so they think she's going to die. So the only thing that they have for snake bite is an analgesic, which is, whiskey. So so he gives her whiskey because that's all he has, and then she gets drunk and unfortunately for him, she doesn't die. So basically, she. I think she called him a drunken, foul-mouthed beast, filthy beast, and
yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen that one.
And he called her Mrs. Goody Two Shoes or something.
Yeah, yeah.
and
they were polar opposites.
Yes, and then because they're stranded. Here's where she's drinking the coconut.
Yeah.
I have a coconut like that actually, around somewhere around here.
John Z says that you train beach bums.
Well, what was different? This wasn't the character that people were used to seeing him being. They were used to seeing.
Seeing him as a debonair, like affluent,
sophisticated.
Yes.
Kind of
yeah, not like all scroungy looking with the couple 2-3 day shadow there going on and all that. Yeah.
So here they are looking where the snake was supposed to have bit her. And
she has her leg up on.
Yeah, she has some kind of gauze, medical gauze taped to her. It turned out not to be a snake though. Turned out to be a stick that looked like a snake.
I hate it when that happens.
And so here they are shooting the end of the film. Anyway, this was a great film, but it was a war movie. But I have a whole list of films, so I won't dwell on any one film or any one actor. Let's see. And as for some reason that one wasn't in the Internet Movie Firearms Database. All right. Should I go back to page 1? Now I'll do it in alphabetical order instead of historical order. Let's see, previous 200. I also have a list that I wrote down. It's hard to do them alphabetically. Let's see, because we just started at some movies. Some of these movies you may have heard of, and some of them maybe not. I don't know if Jared is still with us. He said one of the reasons he joined the military was because he saw Saving Private Ryan and he wanted to blow stuff up.
Yes,
Yeah, and I had just remarked that it was watching movies when you're a kid is different when watching them as an adult when it comes to war movies. Because I remember when I saw Tora Tora Tora, which was they used real planes and real explosions. They didn't have computer-generated graphics explosions, so they actually had to blow stuff up. And when I remember when I was a kid, it looked all fun, planes flying around, people shooting guns, and what was wrong with that, right? And then you see them blow up the Arizona as an adult, and it actually means something. And, let's see.
Schindler's List is probably my all-time.
I have always had a hard problem watching Holocaust kind of films because
I'm sure
because it's my because my family is Holocaust survivors. It's like I have a headache whenever I start to watch one, and it's like you have a migraine sometimes, or I have a headache when I start to watch Holocaust films. So I never actually watched that movie. I've seen a lot of Holocaust war movies, but I realized what the problem was, and I stopped watching them.
Right. And there's also Life is Beautiful for those that do watch Holocaust war movies. That movie is excellent as well.
There was one called a Gary Cooper film called The Court Martial of Billy Mitchell. And for anybody who's never seen The Court Martial of Billy Mitchell, what that is about, it was Gary Cooper. Basically, it was about somebody who was in the military that said Pearl Harbor could be bombed by airplanes, and so they everybody in the military said he was crazy, and they drummed him out of the military and court-martialed him. And of course, then Pearl Harbor was bombed. So, but it was like everybody believed that battleships were the be-all, end-all of the naval paradigm. And it turned out not to be the case. But that was a famous film called The Court Martial of Billy Mitchell. And Gary Cooper was a pretty big star. Another early film was a silent movie. It was called Wings. I could find that one. Go here and find it on this list. It was like it was a World War I film. I mean, if anybody's seen the Blue Max, it's kind of like that, except a silent movie. Not chicken wings. Jesus. I swear, internet searches gives me chicken wings.
Hey, you know what?
What?
You've done really good at not saying every 2 seconds. I'm very proud of you. Hey, Grim.
Now that you've mentioned it, I probably won't be able to control myself.
You know.
Did I say it during your chat on Thursday?
No, I think you did pretty good.
All right.
Like, it wasn't noticeable if you did it because,
Okay. Computer's making all kinds of sounds at me.
Oh.
1927 film. All right, I think I found it on Wikipedia anyway. Wings. 1927 American silent war film set in the First World War, released by Paramount Pictures. Stars Clara Bow, Buddy Rogers, Richard Arland. Gary Cooper appears in a small role, which helped launch his career. The film, a romantic action war picture. I mean, I saw this film a long time ago. It was rewritten by the scriptwriters from a story to accommodate Bow, the Paramount's biggest star at the time, Clara Bow. Wellman was hired, blah, 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 blah. That's what the film is about. Claimed for its technical prowess and realism upon release, the film became a yardstick against which all future aviation films were measured, mainly because of the realistic air combat sequences. Went on to win the first Academy Award for Best Picture. The first Academy Award for Best Picture. Wow. It also won the Academy Award for Best Engineering Effects.
Ooh.
Wings was the first show to show two men kissing, okay, and also one of the first widely released films to show nudity.
What year was this?
1927.
Huh.
In 1997, Wings was selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. I'm going to see if I can screen share this shot here. Yeah, there it is. There she is. So this is World War I. If anybody's seen the Blue Max, it's similar to that, except it's a silent movie. And it was better in some ways. I mean, again, silent movies were people they had to emote because they couldn't talk. So it's a different kind of, if you get your hands on this, the DVD of this, it's worth seeing.
Does it have the crazy music in it?
I don't remember about the music. It's been a long time since I've seen this one.
The old piano or organ music that they used to play.
Well, that was one of the things about Birth of the Nation is that the first time they actually would have a score and they would give, there would be like a organist or an orchestra in the movie theater to play they just would get the music, sheets of music, and somebody would have to play it, because they didn't have a separate audio track. I said, again, fuck. I'm not supposed to say that either. Battleground, that was the Battle of the Bulge, a movie called Battleground. That was the one where I remember that because for gun channels reasons, one of the soldiers had taken a Luger pistol off of a dead officer, and so he was trying to sell it to another soldier before he went home. And the other soldier said, "I can't buy it from you because the Sullivan Act." And then we looked up the Sullivan Act, and basically that was the New York Gun Control Act, which banned pistols that could be easily concealed. And basically it was passed because what it was used for is that the Sullivan guy was a politician, and he had the pistols planted on his political opponents, and then hauled them off to jail right before the election so they couldn't campaign. It was anyway. You can look up the Sullivan Act, but that was one film about the Battle of the Bulge, called Battleground. Birth of a Nation, we talked about. The Battle of Britain. All Quiet on the Western Front was another pretty good war movie. Between Heaven and Hell. Apocalypse Now. That was based on Heart of Darkness. I'm sure everybody's seen Apocalypse Now. That's around. Big Parade. That was another war movie. Blue Max. Bridge on the River Kwai. The Bridges of Toko-Ri. Kelly's Heroes. Everybody probably seen Donald Sutherland and Clint Eastwood in that. None of the comedy. Firefox. That was a Clint Eastwood film. The Caine Mutiny, Humphrey Bogart. And that was an awesome war movie. Enemy Below. Casablanca.
Mm-hmm.
Some people consider that like one of the classic movies of all time.
Yeah.
The Desert Rats. Oh, Dusty. Now here's something I watched. One of the other things I saw on was a American History Channel about how they defended Tobruk against tanks, and they didn't use hedgehogs. So, but you do have to. They did have a big tank trap, basically a big ditch that completely surrounded Tobruk. But the winning strategy was that they let how they won, or at least stalled Rommel, was they let the tanks in and fought. The first line let the tanks go by it, but they fought off the infantry, and then they let the tanks into an area where they had their artillery all lined up to bombard them. So that's how they stopped Rommel. But they did have a big ditch as a tank trap all the way around Tobruk. And the Desert Rats that was Richard Burton. He plays an English soldier, that's an officer that's put in charge of, in the end, I think, 3 Australian companies. And the funny thing about the documentary was the Desert Rats was actually a name that the German propaganda radio broadcasts called them, and they liked it, so it stuck. The Desert Rats, they actually kept that as their, unit logo.
That's cool.
And they made a film called The Desert Rats. At the end of the movie, but there's a German broadcast that basically said they were like rats in the desert, hiding in holes, and so that's how they got the name. Because the Germans would play these radio broadcasts to try and demoralize the troops, as if being surrounded and stuck in Tobruk for 8 months wasn't demoralizing enough. But anyway, let's see. Below Casablanca, Desert Rat. Sahara. That's the battle. The battle of right after the Battle of Tobruk was the Battle of El Alamein, and that's what Sahara was about with Humphrey Bogart. I've always liked that one. I have so many more films here. 12 O'Clock High. That was one of the great ones with Gregory Peck. Sands of Iwo Jima. That's worth. The thing about the Sands of Iwo Jima is that John Wayne was convinced to make that film because the Marines went to him and said, the Armed Services Committee after World War II is going to shut down. They don't think they need the Marine Corps anymore. So they think they've got the Navy, they've got the Army, they've got the Air Corps. What do they need the Marines for? So that's why he made that movie. That's why that movie was made. And there's still a Marine Corps because of that movie. Because it convinced the politicians that they still needed the Marine Corps. The Man Who Never Was with Clifton Webb. That was about a fake man that had some fake plans that said the D-Day invasion was going to be at Calais. So they planted these plans on a dead man and had on a boat that beached on, I think, off Portugal or something, and where the Germans were bound to find it. Had Clifton Webb, The Longest Day, about the D-Day, 36 Hours with James Garner and Rod Taylor, bunch of submarine films, Torpedo Run, Destination Tokyo, and there's one of the greatest films, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, which that used real planes in that movie, and that was like a film that really, that whole raid of Jimmy Doolittle, they became national heroes after they bombed Tokyo, because Japan had been winning every battle, and Americans hadn't won anything or done anything, unless you count that they hadn't done anything. Nothing good had happened since Pearl Harbor until the Doolittle raid over Tokyo. So 30 Seconds Over Tokyo was just an incredible movie, and obviously James Doolittle they made him a general, and he gave I think everybody that survived, which all but 8 people survived that. They had to crash land in China because they didn't have enough fuel to make it back, and they couldn't land on an aircraft carrier anyway. They were light bombers, so that really made America feel good, that bombing raid, and that was just an amazing story. So let's see: Torpedo Run, Destination Tokyo, The Flying Leathernecks with John Wayne, Sailor of the King, 49th Parallel, Das Boot. It's another submarine film, the German side. Guy Named Joe.
Have you seen any movies that you liked about the 6-Day War for Jerusalem?
I remember Cast a Giant Shadow with Kirk Douglas, but the 6-Day War,
yeah,
that wasn't the 6-Day War. That was the War for Independence of
There's
Israel.
a new movie called In Our Hands, Battle for Jerusalem, but I have no idea.
Well, I did see. I was watching in the American Heroes channel, and they had a bunch of stuff about after the World War II. They had one of the shows. They had a bunch of shows about Hitler and the Nazis, and one of the shows was called Nazi Jihad. And basically, what the point they made was that after World War II, all the German commandos and intelligence people, after trying to putz around in Europe and Germany after the war and really not getting anywhere, they all went to work in Egypt for Abdel Nasser, and they created the PLO. They trained the PLO. They worked for Nasser. Basically Hezbollah and the PLO are all run by basically the Nazis were called commandos, and intelligence people were called the werewolves, and they were like Hitler's favorite commandos. And
Right.
so whenever people start giving Israel shit, I just, it all sounds like Nazi propaganda to me, because it's what it is. If you go back to in World War II, Hitler didn't meet with him, but Himmler did. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem was basically, Himmler called him the Arabian Führer or something like that. And basically, he wanted all the Jews exterminated, and he kept writing to Himmler to build extermination camps. And they actually had a mobile extermination truck following Rommel around, and he killed a lot of Jews in, I think, Tunisia, but fortunately Rommel lost, and the Americans and Patton and Montgomery beat him like a drum in the end. But
I just find that I believe it's 1967, isn't this? the 6-Day War for Jerusalem. I just find it very interesting. I'd love to know, see something that kind of depicted that. I think it'd be interesting.
Well, it would be one of those things where people would protest it, just like Birth of a Nation. I mean, the Arabs would say it's, I keep saying,
of course they would.
The Arabs would protest it. It would be called a racist film, and it would be. I mean, there's so much. I'm so used to hearing people blaming Jews for everything all the time. I'm used to it. It bounces off of me, but
I mean,
I don't like hearing it.
If you look at Israel, it's changed hands at least 58 times from historical data. At least 58 times. It's been basically wiped out and rebuilt, and wiped out and rebuilt, or occupied. Gone back and forth on which kings or who has taken control of it, I should say. So I mean, it's really interesting. It's the single.
Yeah,
probably.
Well, if you listen to, you could read the historical writings of Josephus, who explains about the Third Jewish Revolt against the Romans, and it's just anyway. But when the Nazis came in, they basically built up, because they wanted the Arabs to fight on the side of the Nazis when Rommel was fighting. So that's.
And then what's bad is the Arabs would have been next. If the Nazis had gotten full control, then they'd have gone after the Arabs next.
Well, I think the Nazis had their hands full. The last thing they needed to do was start a fight with the Arabs, because they had their hands full with Russia, America, and France.
Yeah, but they wanted Britain. A pure race. I mean, they were for genocide.
But they thought
anyone that was mentally handicapped or.
Yeah, but they thought that Islam was a better religion than Christianity, because of the whole concept of jihad. So anyway, I'm not going to get into all that stuff. Let's see, D-Day, the 6th of June. D-Day the 6th of June, or D-Day the 7th of June? Okay, that was a movie with Robert Taylor. Dawn Patrol, 1938. Flyboys, The Desert Fox, speaking of Rommel. A film starring Glenn Ford and Edwin G. Robinson, Destroyer, made in 1943. The Eagle Has Landed, Donald Sutherland, and we can look that up. That was basically it. The Eagle Has Landed is when some German commandos parachute into Britain and try and kill Churchill. Very good movie. Where Eagles Dare, Clint Eastwood and Richard Burton. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, 1961. I bet a lot of people have not seen that. See, so there are other movies besides just Red Dawn,
Right.
Because G. Webbs, who built Gun Channels, really, that was an important film to him, Red Dawn. But there are a lot of other good war movies. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse was released in 1961. From Here to Eternity, that's another Hawaii-centered one. And let's see, The Guadalcanal Diaries, The Guns of Navarone, that was David Niven, Gregory Peck, Anthony Quinn. That was an amazing movie. The Halls of Montezuma, Heaven, can't read my own writing, Hell's Angels. I can't read my own writing.
Well, I'm going to say goodnight to everyone. It's getting like 100 degrees in here in this office. I don't know.
I'm sorry. Thanks for showing up.
All right. Night, everyone. Love y'all.
Night, Oily. See you Thursday.
All right. Night.
Heaven Knows Mr. Allison. Hell's Angels. Hellcats of the Navy. Heroes of the Telemark, when they took out the heavy water, Nazis had a heavy water plant in Norway. Lone Survivor, we talked about that one. Imitation General. Back to Bataan. Bat 21, that's a Vietnam one. They Were Expendable, In Harm's Way, Midway, and Mr. Roberts, Night of the Generals, Lawrence of Arabia, Operation Burma with Errol Flynn, Operation Petticoat, another Cary Grant sub-movie. It's a romantic comedy. Paths of Glory, Patton, The Great Escape, Hell is for Heroes. That's a Steve McQueen movie. PT 109, The Real Glory, Sergeant York, Red Tails, Red Badge of Courage, To Hell and Back, Audie Murphy, Full Metal Jacket, Saboteur, The Sand Pebbles, another Steve McQueen movie, Saving Private Ryan, we talked about, Sink the Bismarck, South Pacific, Test Pilot, Top Gun, To Be or Not to Be. Here's one of my favorite movies, James Garner in the Americanization of Emily. Has anybody seen that one? I just love the part where basically James Garner plays like an officer whose job it is to arrange parties for all the generals. That's his job in England. And somehow one of the Navy admirals wants a Navy soldier wants a film made about, because he wants the Navy to be the first a sailor to be the first soldier on Omaha Beach. So they get James Garner to volunteer for the movie. He doesn't realize until it's too late that he's actually going to have to go onto the beach before anybody else. And so, with just a camera for backup. And that doesn't end too well, but it was a hilarious movie. The best line was because the girl he was dating, there's a romance between him and a British female military driver, and she hates everything about America, but she loves James Garner's character. And she specifically hates, she has some line about him, Americans just show up in their uniforms and chocolate bars and expect you to fall down at their feet or something like that. And so they have a big argument, and he basically thinks he's getting away, he's sneaking away and conning his way out of this film and being the first sailor killed on Omaha Beach. So he says, he says to her, I want you to remember me running away from combat and eating a Hershey bar. So he stops, eats a Hershey bar, and gets on the plane. But it doesn't work out. The con doesn't work. So anyway.
Did you ever see Inglourious Bastards or Inglourious
Yes, I did.
Bastards?
Yeah, I love it when Brad Pitt carves a swastika on the guy's forehead. I just love that.
Did you see the one from 78?
The one from what?
1978. There's two movies. One's Inglourious Bastards and one's Inglourious Bastards.
I haven't seen the one from 1978. No.
It's not great, but it's a fun movie to watch.
I'm gonna have to buy some. I'm gonna have to go on Amazon and buy a bunch more movies after this broadcast. Because my dad is a real DVD nut for movies. I mean, he worked in the film industry all his life, but he has like 3,000 DVDs or something. He has a list of them. And when we went through, he wasn't like looking up any. Basically, I called him and we kind of made this list for this show. And he wasn't looking at like anything on the internet. He was looking at his list of all his DVDs that he has, and it was just, he has so many DVDs, it's nuts. But one movie that I saw that wasn't a Moore movie, but because I was watching James Cagney movies on Turner Classic Movies, and they had it was a romantic. James Cagney plays a gangster from Chicago who finds a singer and gets her work as a singer because he likes her. that was in Chicago. It was easy because he was a bull in a china shop. He could just threaten to kill somebody, and they, instead of being killed, or he could give them a deal on booze, and they give the girl a job singing, and so he could just bully people, and he bullied everyone, including the girl, and he winds up he bullies into marrying her, and he's opposite of Doris Day. So he marries his wife is like Doris Day in this movie, and he finally gets her, and so she marries him, but she's miserable. It's not really. Basically, the movie's called "Love Me or Leave Me," and the interaction between Doris Day and James Cagney is it's one of those things you can't necessarily do in a war movie when you have like a man and a woman having this conflict, and it's a constant fight. They're constantly at war, but and he finally gets her role in a big Hollywood movie, and then she says something he doesn't like, and they have a fight, and he slaps her really hard, and Doris Day had this look on her face of total shock. I don't know how she pulled it off, but it looked like she was really shocked, and anyway, so she divorces him.
I mean, maybe like in Die Hard when they dropped the guy who plays Hans Gruber, they dropped him on like 1 or something.
Well, he seemed surprised when he started falling.
They dropped him on like 1 instead of 3. They lied to him. Well,
but that was phony. That was all. He slapped her, and the look on her face was just of absolute shock. But what's really interesting in that movie is if you're a fan, did you ever watch like Westerns TV shows when you were a kid? Did you ever see the Western High Chaparral?
No, I haven't.
That was like about a ranch in Arizona called the High Chaparral, and Leif Erikson plays John Cannon, and he has a son, Billy Blue, and they have this ranch near the Mexican border, or on the Mexican border in Arizona, and they're always fighting the Apaches. And his brother is Buck Cannon, who is played by Cameron Mitchell. When he's pretty old, he plays, they're both, Leif Erikson and Cameron Mitchell, pretty old at this time, but in Love Me or Leave Me with Doris Day and James Cagney, after James Cagney slaps Doris Day leaves James Cagney, gets a divorce or files for divorce, and goes back to the piano player, which Cagney has been jealous of the whole time because they knew each other in Chicago, but the piano player is like doing all the music for the movie that he got her a role in, and because that's his job. But Cagney is insanely jealous. He's sure they're fooling around, and they weren't fooling around until she slapped him, until he slapped her, and then she goes and tells the piano player, who is played by Cameron Mitchell, and he is so much younger in that movie. I'm used to seeing him as Uncle Buck in his character in The High Chaparral, and then I saw him as the piano player, the music guy in Love Me or Leave Me, and he is so much younger in this film. And so Doris Day goes and kisses the piano player, Cameron Mitchell's character, and he's so much younger than I'm used to seeing him as this old Uncle Buck guy in character. And anyway, so James Cagney, in the end, he shoots the piano player because he's a gangster. He said, I warned him. And he shoots him twice. The piano player lives, and Doris Day character goes into jail because they arrest him for murder or attempted murder, and bails him out and visits him in a prison cell. And basically, James Cagney's character says, I don't need you. Leave, just go away. I don't need you at all. But she bails him out and then sings at his nightclub, to save his financial bacon. Anyway, it was just a great, incredibly. I thought it was better than any of his war movies that James Cagney did, just because the interaction between those two characters, between Doris Day and James Cagney, it was incredible. Of course, James Cagney did Yankee Doodle Dandy, one of my favorites. That's not a war movie, but he was such a talented actor. It was a talent. He was a talented vaudevillian, and just an amazing person as far as what he did in his career. All right. Anyway, back to the movies. Young Lions. That had Marlon Brando and quite a few other people in it. To the Shores of Tripoli. That's another movie. Up Periscope. The Steel Helmet. That was about the Korean War. Triple Cross. Dirty Dozen. Aces High. Bridget Remagen. The Devil's Brigade. 633 Squadron. Basically, that was like the if you ever saw Star Wars, if you see 633 Squadron, you'll get the attack on the Death Star was stolen from this film, 633 Squadron, which was made awesome by the famous music score for the 633 Squadron. Is the military, the British military band plays 633 Squadron. You can hear it on the internet. You can just search for 633 Squadron, and you'll hear the music for it. It's just an amazing score, the most amazing score I've ever heard in my life, and it made that film. But that movie basically was about the Mosquito squadrons that had to drop barrel bombs. Actually, I think it was they had to blow up a mountain, and they had to drop like 1-ton bombs at a specific spot on a mountain to get it to drop on top of some kind of heavy water production facility, and they had to fly through a canyon full of flak guns on the side. It was just like Star Wars when the rebel fighters attacked. That's where George Lucas stole it from, basically, and I think he even says that at one point. But anyway, Charge of the Light Brigade, A Bridge Too Far, Santa Fe Trail with Errol Flynn and Ronald Reagan, They Died with Their Boots On, Enemy at the Gates, Wind Talkers with Nicolas Cage. Anybody remember that one? The Bedford Incident. That was when Sidney Poitier plays a reporter who's doing a report on Richard Whitmark, who plays the destroyer, who's an obsessed destroyer captain who's obsessed with a Russian submarine that has crossed into American territory once too often, and should I do another spoiler on that film? Because the way it ends is, well, both ships wind up nuking each other. Just what happens is I think I've talked about that film before, so I've already done a spoiler alert, but still worth seeing. Richard Whitmark was he was an A-line actor, top actor, and I think Donald Sutherland had a role, like a bit part with like one line as a hospitalman in the ship. But how it ends is that there's a standoff. The Russian submarine commander has been. Richard Whitmark just pushes him to the limit and doesn't let the sub captain use his snorkel or replace his oxygen, and he's can't surface, and so he arms his anti-submarine missile system, and then he gets into an argument with one of the officers, and he says, "Don't worry, I'm not going to fire one unless he fires one." And then the weapons officer hears fire one, so he says, "Fire one." He fires the missile, and they can't recall it. And as soon as the Russian submarine commander hears the missile hit the water, he fires his torpedo, and they both have nuclear warheads. So the submarine is destroyed, and so is the U.S. destroyer. anyway, so that's like a Cold War kind of a war film, a Cold War film. I think I don't know why guys like war films. I guess it's because people like to fight, but without having to actually risk death or something. You can kind of lose yourself, or maybe it's just because people like guns. I'm not sure. I think G-Web's liked Red Dawn, and then he joined the military. I guess it's different for everybody, but for me, it's like my old man has been in the film industry so long. He's just a film nut, and he has so many DVDs that it's just interesting to watch the history of the film industry and the nation, because you can kind of see it through this filter of these war movies. What people are fighting for, what people are fighting about, and if you like history and the film industry, it's one genre of films that it's worth following. I like Brad Pitt in Fury, that about when he's the tank commander. I don't know if I like Troy all that much. That was another war film, but it was the Trojan War. I think I missed a few. Let me go to where's the war film on the internet? Firearm Database, in that movie, Firearm Database. What the hell is that? Okay. Let's see what we have here. The Tunnel Rats. 100 Rifles. Jeepers. Battle of Warsaw, 1920. A Walk in the Sun. I think that sounds like something I may have seen a very long time ago. Oh, Quiet on the Western Front. I said something about that. Band of Brothers. That was more of a... Was that a movie or a TV show? The Big Red One. I think I mentioned that.
Band of Brothers was a TV show on HBO.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is on the internet movie Firearm Database, so it's not quite as accurate as I would have liked. We made our list from movies that we knew or seen or actually had a DVD of. So, all right. I don't know if Blood Diamond was a war movie. People are shooting at each other all the time, but whatever. I don't know if I'd consider Captain America a war movie, but whatever. MASH was a movie. I remember seeing that when first time I saw the movie MASH, that was in a drive-in movie theater. Let's see.
Yeah, they ended up getting rid of. I never actually saw the movie, but was it one of the names of one of the guys, Spear Chucker? Or isn't that his nickname or something? They ended up getting rid of it on the TV show.
Yeah, when I saw it, I have the DVD that I bought. I think I talked about it last week, or maybe it was during Edge's show. Yeah, it was during Edge's show. Gone with the Wind. I got the 70th anniversary edition of Gone with the Wind, and they took out a lot of stuff from the book Gone with the Wind, because for the first, they took out some references to the KKK and a bunch of other stuff in Gone with the Wind. Because they had to take out so much, it was natural, because the book was over 1,000 pages long. If they wouldn't have taken out anything, it would have been a 20-hour movie or more. And as it was, when they made it, it was originally like a 5.5-hour movie, and they cut it down to 3.5 hours. So, but they took out a lot of stuff. There was still a lot of racial stereotypes and stuff in there, but it won 10 Academy Awards. And just like Birth of a Nation, I mean, the censorship board was more, it was controversial, but not as much as Birth of a Nation was. Let's see, a few Gallipoli films. Man. Devil's Brigade. I like that movie about the Special Service Forces. Dr. Zhivago. Dunkirk was recent. There was a 1958 version of Dunkirk. The English Patient, I remember that. I think 36 Hours was about James Garner. It plays a American soldier that's kidnapped by the Germans while he's unconscious, and he comes to and he finds himself in what is really a fake American hospital, and the Germans are trying to get out of him where the invasion of D-Day is going to be at, and so they take him and make him think that the wars have been over for several years, and he's had a memory problem with his memory, and so they're trying to get him to spill the beans of where the second front will be. Let's see. Gods and Generals. For Whom the Bell Tolls. Force 10 from Navarone. Good Morning Vietnam. The Great Dictator, I don't consider that a war movie. The Guadalcanal, well, that was a war movie. Diary, that was a war movie. Hamburger Hill. Okay, that was a war movie. The Horse Soldiers, John Wayne again. Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2 with Charlie Sheen. That was just so ridiculous. I don't even consider it a war movie. It was just a ridiculous comedy. The Hunt for Red October. Okay, I'll call that a Cold War movie. Ice Station Zebra. I remember seeing that one in a drive-in movie theater too. That was Rock Hudson plays a submarine commander, and some, I forget, Russian satellite or something lands in the Arctic, and there's a race between the Russians and the Americans to find the capsule of some space missile that landed there. That's a Cold War movie. Station Zebra. Battle of Britain. I think I said something about that. The Lost Battalion. Pork Chop Hill, I remember. If with the whole thing about Korea, and I guess they launched another missile today, Pork Chop Hill was Gregory Peck leading a group of soldiers and fighting to keep this hill while the people in charge, the army commanders, were negotiating to give it away, and nobody wanted to send any more soldiers to die for a hill that they were going to give away. They were fighting for it, and had lost like 90% of their men, and it was just absolutely stupid. You can see the pointlessness of talking and negotiating with North Koreans if you ever watched Pork Chop Hill. Master Commander: The Far Side of the World. That was a pretty good movie with Russell Crowe, and I forgot who played Darwin. McHale's Navy, I love that show as a TV series. I don't know about the movie. When I was a kid, I never missed an episode of McHale's Navy for some reason. Let's see. Paths of Glory. Let's see what that one is. Kirk Douglas. 1957 World War I film directed by Stanley Kubrick. Stars Kirk Douglas as a French officer who defends 3 soldiers who are about to be executed for cowardice as the result of a disastrous attempt to take a well-defended German position and a French general's desire to shift the blame. So it sounds like the court-martial of Billy Mitchell, except it was done, it's the same kind of thing where all the generals want to blame some, a lower-ranking person for something terrible, some terrible event that happened in the war. And obviously, World War I, the Battle of the Somme. Right. So, I hate ads. All right. Anyway, let's see. Where's that list? Back. Let's see. Operation Crossbow. Night of the Generals. Pearl Harbor. Platoon. That's a pretty famous film. Predator. That's why everybody wants a minigun. Now, I know that I want a minigun. I know that last time, I forget it was off the air or on last week's show. I think it was Squidload said that you can't actually fire a minigun like Jesse Ventura did or Arnold Schwarzenegger did. But I saw FPS Russia. He shot a minigun just like that for a YouTube video. So I know it's probably hard to maintain and all that stuff, and you need a crew of people to maintain it. But if he could do it on a YouTube video, then it can't be completely impossible or unrealistic too. Because I want a minigun, but anyway, I don't know what will have to happen for that to actually be a doable thing in Hawaii. But anyway.
Maybe you could do one of those revolving SKS miniguns.
It's got to be the real thing. I mean, I could get into a Gatling gun, but I don't really want to spend $56,000 on it. Specifically, I'm waiting till that stupid wrap back law gets repealed before I buy any other gun.
What about that hand crank? Have you seen that hand crank trigger thing for your AR-15 that Jerry Mitchell used in one of his videos?
I didn't see that one, no.
It just adds a crank to the trigger of the AR-15.
That doesn't make it a full auto weapon. It's hand cranked. It's not full auto, but no, I didn't see it. But a real minigun would be fun for a while. I'd like to get one, but again, until some of these, I hope somebody takes the Hawaiian wrap back list to court and gets it overturned, the Supreme Court, because it's a clear violation of the 1986 Firearm Owners Protection Act. But anyway, Sergeant York, that was a great film. Gary Cooper again. Wow. The Steel Helmet, that was, I'm going to click on this one. I saw this film once. Steel Helmet is the 1951 war film that was the first U.S. feature film to portray the Korean War on screen. The war had only begun a year earlier. This was also the breakout film for director Samuel Fuller, who went on to direct such notable films as Merrill's Marauders That was a great film, Merrill's Marauders, and The Big Red One. Steel Helmet also marked the feature film acting debut of character actor Gene Evans, who would proceed to have a role in Fuller's next Korean War film, Fixed Bayonets, also released in 1951. And the production was the first, but not the last, to use the Santa Monica Mountains as a stand-in for Korea. The film is a meditation on race, bigotry, tolerance, and morality in wartime. Basically, this this one particular veteran is kind of he's kind of a little dingy because I think he fought at the character is supposed to is a little. He fought at basically Omaha Beach and in World War II, and here he is in Korea. And it's basically the whole thing about the steel helmet is that there's a lot of officers who he wouldn't give his helmet to, and he hasn't met a new officer since World War II that he'd give his helmet to. So anyway, that's the whole plot of the character's motivation through that film. But yeah. That was a pretty good one, I thought. I don't know, maybe it's just that because you can bring up so many important themes. Of course, you could do that with just a romantic comedy or romance film. Like Love Me or Leave Me wasn't a war film, but it was great. Just the interplay between the characters was just awesome in that film. I mean, they were at war with each other as husband and wife, but Doris Day and James Cagney, but anyway. All right, war films. I think I've finished going through this list on. I'm going to count Star Wars as a science fiction, not a war film.
Did you ever see Green Zone?
Yeah, I saw the Green Zone. It wasn't all that great of a film. It's one of those films where I think it was just basically the point was that it questioned the post-war strategy of which it made all the people it made all the Iraqis that we wanted on our side to be our enemies. It questioned that whole strategy, what it did, and it was right, but I mean, okay. It doesn't really solve anything to make a film about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was based on a book, but by the guy who led those Met teams.
Yeah, well, they definitely did not handle that's the hardest part about invading some other country the way they did is you knock over the whole leadership, take out the military. Oh, wait, here's another film that I just saw here. Yeah, but they screwed up the post-war. It's not easy to take over an Arab country that's been around longer than America. I mean, it was drawn up on a map by some British generals, but Mesopotamia has been around for quite some time, and they have their own history, and just walking in, you're not going to build a Jeffersonian democracy, and everybody isn't going to automatically just like America over there. So,
well, I'm more or less referring to the fact that there was no WMDs. That's the biggest takeaway I got from the movie.
Well, yeah, the first casualty of any war is the truth, but. Vaughn Ryan's Express with Frank Sinatra. You ever see that one? They're prisoners escaping from kind of an Italian prison camp. I mean, and when the Allies invade Italy, a rather terrible invasion. I think Churchill said about the invasion of Italy at Anzio. He said. We were trying to throw a lion on the beach, and we wound up with I don't even remember the quote. I'm sorry. But anyway, they eventually get on. They escape the prison camp because it's guarded by Italian who are just not enthusiastic. The soldiers that are guarding them are not enthusiastic about the war or keeping them prisoners. So it's not that hard for them to escape the camp, but it's the country's overrun with Nazis. So they kind of hijack a train, and they have Germans chasing them all the way. And it's called Frank Sinatra and Trevor Howard in Von Ryan's Express. And you can't miss it. It's a good Frank Sinatra film. So, War of the Worlds. Well, there's the Orson Welles. It started as a radio show. Everybody thought it was real.
Yeah, my dad tells me that all the time.
Yeah, it was. That's how they used to do radio. They didn't have TV. Everybody listened to radio like CBS. When I was a kid, I grew up every night at 9 p.m. they would have the CBS Mystery Theater, and I could still find all those old shows on YouTube. But people listen to that stuff, and he just Orson Welles wrote up a radio play, and it got broadcast, and everybody thought the invasion was real. Okay, I think I've gone through everything here. Let's see if I missed anything important. I didn't see the film War Dogs. That was a recent release. A lot of people like that one. I didn't get around to seeing that one.
Was that one with Jonah Hill?
I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, Jonah Hill, Miles Teller.
Yeah, it didn't look that exciting to me.
War Dogs is a 2016 war comedy as two young friends find themselves getting $300 million contract from the U.S. government to transport arms to troops in Afghanistan. The film, based on a true story, was directed by Todd Phillips, and the cast includes Bradley Cooper and Ana de Armas. I'm sure I pronounced her name wrong, but who cares? Universal Pictures, Amblin Entertainment. All right. Well, I'm going to stop screen sharing all that stuff. Anybody still watching? Probably not. Dusty has been busy. I know he was canning. What were you canning if you're still there?
I made some salsa tonight.
And you canned it. That's awesome.
Yes.
When are you going to eat it? When are you going to eat it?
Sometime this winter. We've been making fresh right out of the garden, but I've got more tomatoes than I know what to do.
You have corn. Can you make your own corn tortilla chips? Like restaurant style?
No. I'd have to plant that type of corn.
Oh, it's a different.
Yeah, most of that's made out of white corn. It's more of a food grade corn.
Okay, you're growing yours for oil or corn oil or?
A lot of it goes to feed. It's just number 2 yellow corn is what it's classified as.
Okay.
Like I said, it'll be feed, but a lot of your and some of it gets used in chips, but a lot of your better chips they use white corn in rather than the yellow corn.
I think I put our audience to sleep, all this war movie stuff. Unless you're a real film fanatic, you're just not quite as into it as a film buff who's like seen everything, and like my dad has every DVD.
It looks like Jesse James and Grimm are still there on the YouTube side.
Okay, I was so busy watching.
And Ohio's been here most of the time too, on the Gun Channel side.
And he's posted quite a few movies too. Like his last one was Enemy at the Gate, which that was a good movie.
Oh yeah, that starred Ed Harris.
Yeah.
And I have his DVD of Appaloosa.
Let's see what other ones. Private Ryan, that one's common. I mean, that's been posted. Midway, that's another one that was a good movie.
Yeah, that way, that's what when I was talking about when I saw Tora as an adult, and I had a visceral reaction to when they blew up Arizona that I did not have when I saw the movie as a child. And my dad just looked at me and said, don't worry, it's okay. We got them back at Midway. And they did every carrier that was almost every carrier. I think they sunk one at the Battle of at Leyte Gulf. I think they got the last one, but they destroyed all the aircraft flyers in the Battle of Midway when they sunk all 4 carriers. But it really, war films have a different impact on you as an adult when you just think about what it just putting yourself in that situation or what it signifies. You almost just wonder why they think it's a good idea to start a war. I don't know why this guy in North Korea thinks it's a good idea to launch a missile. I mean, our president fires people, not missiles. But if we have to drop a bomb, I'm sure he'll do it. Anyway, so we have to find out, watch North Korea. Hopefully their missiles aren't very accurate. I just hope they don't accidentally hit my island. But then I'll otherwise have to take you up on your offer and move. You can pick me up at the airport in Michigan. Show up with all my rifles, guns, and parts parts that can be assembled into a hedgehog. But when I saw Tobruk, the American Heroes channel on Rommel and Tobruk, they really went into detail, and the fortifications weren't hedgehogs. It was just a big trench around the whole defensive fortification, a big tank trench. So I know you could set one of those up if you had to, but hopefully you never have to. In case they're coming for your salsa.
There is nothing here that they would ever come for. I mean, we're a long ways, like Squib says, we're a long way from anywhere. So,
well, like I just mentioned about prepping, is that you really can't, you don't have to foresee what the battlefield will be that you're going to find yourself on, or what the motivation of whoever your enemy is, to just have a plan that can deal with a general scenario of being attacked in force. Was the scenario that I was trying to bring into focus, because a lot of people don't have a plan for a lot of things. Do you have a plan for what happens if there's martial law? Do you have a plan for what happens if you are put, if your farm burns down, where are you going to go? Do you have a plan for, there's just prepping is about making plans and alternate plans, and plans of, if plan A goes wrong, what's plan B? And when plan F goes wrong, what's plan N? And all that stuff. But, you don't have to build a hedgehog, even though I would really love to see a video. In Tobruk, basically, like I was saying, they let the British generals let the tanks through they figured out, they guesstimated where the tanks would drive along the perimeter of the defenses, and they guessed where they would cross in, and they massed their artillery where they thought, so they could attack where the tanks were going to be, and the infantry let the tanks roll over them, and then they fought the German infantry, but not the tanks. And so they just let the British artillery deal with the German tanks, and it worked. They got lucky and guessed right. So Rommel lost a lot of his tanks that way. And the British infantry would have had a hard time stopping them, but the artillery did it. So, and they had to forward some tank traps. But anyway, it was interesting. But I think I overdosed on old movies and American Heroes channel over the weekend, though. So I didn't have anything else other than war movies to talk about. And my dad was such an expert, so I called him up, and he went through basically has a list of every movie that he has, and we went through it and picked out all the war movies, and I got to talk to my dad for a while. So that was kind of this week's chat. So I don't know what else is happening on gun channels. I think we should all say a prayer for our friends in Texas. Hope they're all going to make it through, and hope God watches over them and keeps them safe for a few more days until Trump gets there and a ray of sun shines down and the rain stops.
Has anybody been on at all today? I didn't see whether like Edge or anybody had.
I didn't look. I talked to Edge on his show on Friday. I haven't talked to him since then. Basically, he said he wasn't gonna. His daughter wanted to go to a party when the hurricane was gonna hit, and he didn't let her do that. So I think the first rule is don't take any chances when something like that happens. Don't take any risks. But I hope they're all okay.
Well, that's like around much this weekend. We decided Friday afternoon to go camping for a couple days, so we hooked onto the trailer and left home for a while. So,
yeah, well, today I didn't do too much. I just went online, checked my blockchain wallet to see. I think I got like 0.004 of Litecoin added to my wallet from my cloud mining account, and then I swam a few laps in the pool, and that was pretty much it for all day. And I made some Jack and Cokes and did this show. I also posted that YouTube video of my leather briefcase that I got for like a CCW I got it from the NRA store. I like it a lot. It's pretty nice, and I needed another bag. And it's the first time I've ever seen one of those YKK locking zippers where you can actually lock it. So it's kind of like a legal way to carry a firearm in Hawaii anyway. Of course, you're not supposed to have it loaded when you transport a firearm. And they have a bunch of other really unconstitutional dumb rules, but that's about as close as you could get to legally carrying a handgun around with that briefcase. I haven't used it for that yet, but it's a really, for what for the hours that it would go in for a leather worker to make a case like that, it would, I think, it'd take like 3 days of sewing and stitching and measuring and cutting leather, and I don't know how much 72 hours of work costs, but it only costs $230 for that. I could find a cheaper bag made of cloth from China for $20, but this was a pretty nice one, I thought. So right now it's stuffed full of ammo and a 56-round shotgun bandolier and a bottle of Bushmills and some paracord. And I think one knife, but I could fill it with gold. That's not where I'm planning on storing it permanently. But if I had to transport my gold to some place where I would trade it in for some other form of currency, then I'd probably throw it in there. But I'm not going to keep it in there until I kind of like hide it very well. It's not where anybody would ever find it. But anyway, all right. So is there anything else happening on gun channels? I see Ohio, Rupan, Jesse James, and Dusty, that's it out there right now. Squibb said he might show up later tonight. I don't know. He didn't say why he couldn't make it, but I know he's not much of a film guy. So anyway.
Yeah, he texted me and said he wasn't going to make it too. So.
Oh well, maybe we'll get him next week. So how did you tell us about this gigantic meeting with all the gun channels people at your farm?
I thought we went through that once.
I think off air we went through it, but to share it with the viewers.
Oh,
if you don't mind.
Basically, we just had a good day of shooting. We had Squibb, Smiggy, and Ohio 45, and we all shot together. We spent probably 4 or 5 hours shooting.
How long before the chronograph got damaged? Was that the first minute or two?
That was about Squibb's first shot through it. Well, his first shot, he hit it and bent it, and then I straightened it. The next shot, I ended up going and making a new arm for it. But it wasn't anything big. I just walked into the shop, and within a few minutes, I had a new piece made for it. So,
so nobody took one shot. It goes into a water tank, and then your farm goes out of business or anything.
No. No.
Or blows up a gasoline storage thing. So
I did haul a load of scrap metal the other day and found one thing I should have shot at. I did not know little propane cylinders have to either be recycled or have a hole in them. So I should have put some holes in them.
A propane tank?
Yeah.
Okay. All I know about propane tanks is that you should go to Ace to get them refilled, because if you buy them at Lowe's, they don't refill them all the way. They just get traded for one that's not completely refilled to save. They kind of grip people off that way. But that's at least how it is in Hawaii. So. I went swimming in the pool today. I pretended it was the infinity pool at that mansion for $70. We have palm trees, it's just not the bluff over Secrets Beach. It's not as nice as the infinity pool, but it was okay. There wasn't anybody there. There weren't children running around this time screaming on the weekends. So I could swim a few laps and soak in the hot tub and try and get my blood pressure down a couple of points. But yeah, that was pretty much my day. I went on, flipped on the blockchain wallet, hit the blockchain faucets for free Bitcoin, and then went to the hot tub, and then came back and made Jack and Coke, and got my list of films ready for this. And so do you can anything else besides salsa, or do you do lots of canning?
Yeah, we try to.
That is one skill
like green beans. I like to do a bunch of tomatoes that are pretty much all ready to make chili, because we eat a lot of chili in the wintertime here.
I buy cans of it. I don't. That is one thing I've just never got into, is canning, but I'm not much of a cook, so that's probably why.
We made some pickles the other day. So yeah, I make a lot of, and I like fresh things out of the garden. It's not stuff I go and buy to do all this. It's all stuff I've raised.
But for pickles, you make your own. What am I thinking of? What do you need for pickles?
Basically, it's a brine, a vinegar type
vinegar.
brine.
You make your own vinegar. That's what I was thinking.
No, you'll buy that, but
you can make apple. I mean, if you brew beer, I know you could brew.
Oh yeah, you can make cider vinegar.
Yeah, Oily was saying. I said again. Now, Oily was saying earlier in the chat that somebody who made a a YouTube video on making fermented pickles got flagged because it was fermented, in the title.
Fermented, so you won't get flagged.
Good. Yeah, we have enough problems.
But yet you would think about, we talk about making beer. If you're going to get in trouble for making fermented pickles, what's beer? It's fermented grain. So
yeah, but I don't think YouTube allows videos of how to ferment anything, so they don't want that evil knowledge to pass around. But
there's all kinds of videos on making beer and wine on YouTube, so I don't know. That one's kind of strange.
Yeah.
Because basically, that's how I learned how to make a lot of beer, was watching YouTube videos. So.
Really? And you got good at it after time you got the stuff and got good at it. I can't even.
Right.
I think one problem I would have is just shipping a still to Hawaii from the mainland would cost too much. So I'd have to try and build my own out of spare scrap metal and stuff, and that's just too much trouble to go to. So anyway,
and I think I'm
gonna go to sleep
tonight pretty quick. Yeah, I'm getting tired myself. So,
all right, thanks for coming in, Dusty. I really appreciate it. And I have no idea what next week's show is gonna be about because I ran out of movies. We can't do movies again.
Yeah, and if since it's a holiday, and if Matt happened not to do his, if you could do it earlier, it might work out good too.
Next week is a holiday?
I don't know. Yeah.
What holiday is next week?
Labor Day.
Oh, I thought today was Labor Day. Okay, never mind. I wouldn't know. I'm retired now, so.
Yeah, it's next Monday night. And I know I'll be busy after that, so I may have to get to sleep. But the Tuesday, I know I have to be up early because I have semis scheduled to be here that day.
When I was dubbing,
I'm going to finally ship some beans.
Wait, you're selling some of your
ship some beans. It'll be the Tuesday after our next Monday.
You sold some of your crops?
Yeah.
Well, that's
I got to make room
news.
for this year. So
when I was dubbing films, I remember when we would come across like a Labor Day or some holiday like that. I mean, nobody at the film company cared what day it was. I mean, the films were due when they were due, and they had to be done when they were done. So if somebody wanted a day off because it was Labor Day, that was just if they wanted to take it off, they wouldn't get paid at all ever again by anybody if they tried to take a day off on Labor Day. But that's what you get when you're a subcontractor. So things have changed. All right. Well, Jared, you got anything else you want to add before I close out this show and let Dusty ride off into the sunset or moonset of Michigan?
You should. Everybody should go check out the Gun Show Loophole Tour. G-Web's posted a new video where he uses a dog animation.
Dog animation?
Yes, that's a dog animation.
Okay. Well, I like dogs. I'll have to go check that out. I think I watched 2 YouTube videos today. I didn't see that in my feed. I think they were both one of them was about cryptos, and the other one I don't remember what it was about.
that's what he was working on today on the Daily Show, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or the early watch show, I guess it was.
Yeah. So today for me, basically, I did that NRA CCW leather briefcase video. I loaded it up, checked my blockchain wallet, and then I went to the pool, and then I started drinking. That was it. It's a tough life. All right. But anyway, so thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm sorry if we bored you to death with films, but I like war films, and my whole family's a film kind of buff family. So everybody say a prayer for our friends in Texas, and Lord watch over them. And we'll see you next week. God bless. Yep.
Right.